Hi, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. So thank you for joining me today for this lecture called Presentation of the Art and Feminism Project. So first, I would like to thank Agak and Amber Berson, co-lead of the Art and Feminism Wikipedia project, who invite me to do this talk today. So I'm really happy and excited to be here with you. And so before I introduce myself and start the presentation, I would like to mention a couple information. So this lecture is part of the second edition of the Art Forum Market, organized by the Association des Galeries d'Art Contemporain, l'AGAC. Everyone is invited to ask questions or comments. At the end of my presentation, you can use the Q&A button to ask your question, not the chat section. So I love answering any question or anything, so don't be shy. Vous pouvez aussi me poser des questions en français si vous préférez, il n'y a aucun problème, ou si vous avez des commentaires en français aussi. Il y a aussi de la traduction simultanée et vous pouvez peser sur le bouton en bas qui est écrit interprétation si vous voulez de la traduction en français. So I'll be speaking for about an hour, 50 minutes, and I will take 50 minutes at the end to answer a question and comments. Yeah, so again, hi everyone. So my name is Camille Larivée, and I am an independent creator, writer, street artist, and cultural worker based in Tiohtià:ke, Montréal, also known as Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I am the director of programming for the Indigenous Curatorial Collective, which is a nonprofit art organization based in Toronto. So I hold bachelor degrees in art history and a certificate in feminist studies from the University of Quebec in Montreal, UQAM. And I am also part of the advisory committee for the Reading Together Reliability and Multilingual Global Communities research project organized by the Art and Feminism project. And I will talk more about this project later. My pronouns are they, she, or IL, elle en français. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation today. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm sure it's going to go well. So I have a PowerPoint. So I will share my screen now and just share my PowerPoint with you. So it's more interesting than just my face. Okay. So there we go. So I hope everyone can see this. So yeah, so today I'm going to present the Art and Feminism project. So there's all the info in the bottom of the page about the website, you know, social media and everything about the project, but I will talk about it later again. So I have the logo in the back of my head. So yeah. So what is art and feminism? So Wikipedia is actually the 7th most visited website in the world. So it's a really famous website. Everyone knows about Wikipedia, at least almost everyone. And, you know, less than 16% of contributors to Wikipedia identify as women, and even less contributors identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color. I will use the acronym BIPOC today to just make it shorter, and less than 10% of contributors also identify as Two-Spirit, LGBTQ, A+ community. So there's also still a few Wikipedia article pages and images on Wikipedia Commons and Wikidata entry on women, BIPOC, and Two-Spirit, LGBTQ, plus artists, creators, and art creatives. So most of the pages on Wikipedia and all the other Wikipedia tools are mostly not including a lot of women artists, BIPOC, and Two-Spirit, etc. communities. So Art and Feminism is an intersectional feminist nonprofit organization created in 2004 that directly addresses the information gap about gender, feminism, and the arts on the internet, especially on Wikipedia. So Art and Feminism is about better representation and sharing stories of misrepresented and marginalized artists, creators, and art creatives. It's really about dismantling supremacist systems, mostly white supremacy in the art world, and creating pathways for everyone to participate in writing history and rewriting history. So it's really about centering anti-oppressive learning. When cis and trans women, non-binary people, people of color, and indigenous communities are not represented and can have access in the writing and editing on one of the most famous websites in the world, information about these communities are misrepresented. The story gets mistold, and we lose the real history. So this is why art and feminism exists. It's to change its reality and make Wikipedia a more accessible resource to marginalized communities. So here, there's a little picture of one of the Wikipedia events that happened when I was doing my Wikipedia residency at Artext last fall in 2019. I will talk about my residency a bit later, but one of the most important, I will say, activities that art and feminism organize across the world is the editathons. So these events are made for people to learn, edit, update, and add articles to Wikipedia. So these events are free to attend, and they're organized year-round in community center, galleries, museum, artist-run centers, university and college, coffee shop, etc. Wherever people want to organize their art and feminism editathons, it's possible. It's really something that people can organize in a small group at home, everywhere they want to. But what is really powerful during these events is usually the participants can receive a short training about how to work with Wikipedia, how to create a profile, how to start editing, or just participating in the community in general, and yeah, how they can support the project. And during the events, usually people are invited to bring their laptop, if they have a laptop, or they can use a computer available on site. So usually there's like resources available if it's in libraries or any community centers. If the participant, for example, don't have ideas for a new addition to Wikipedia, there's always list of suggestions available with team, etc. So people can always like work on a specific project that was started by some art and feminism participant in the past. So these lists are always a good way to start editing in Wikipedia if you don't know how to start. So it's really amazing events to participate. In Montreal, there's always a lot of them happening. So if you follow the website, you can see where the next one is happening. For sure, with COVID now, these events are now online, but usually they're more in person. So how can I contribute to Wikipedia and art and feminism? This is the question that we receive a lot when we're involved in art and feminism, and people think it's really complicated, but it's actually not that complicated. There is a lot of information and steps to begin to be an editor in Wikipedia. So today I will just do like a brief intro to it. But you will have access to my PowerPoint eventually. So all the link I put there and all the info will be available to you. So don't stress today if you don't have time to take all the notes. There's also all the info on the website. So first, when you want to start, if you're interested to start participating in the project, you need to go on the wikipedia.org and create an account and a username. And there's a guide on the Wikipedia website about how to do some editing with the Art and Feminism project. I just put the link right there. So there's all the steps to do. It can be an overwhelming document. So I always suggest to people to just first participate in one of the editathons, because it's more like simple to understand, because you can have a real training. For the username, we always recommend to use a unique pseudonym to identify yourself in Wikipedia, because, you know, when you edit topics that are likely to generate controversy, like including feminist topics, biography of living women, politics, climate change, anything that it's a subject that might be debate, like it can be like a debate, using your real name as a username increase the risk of being a target of harassment outside of Wikipedia, because there's a lot of what we call trolls on Wikipedia. So people who really like to harass women and marginalized community on Wikipedia. So people will try to, you know, create new pages. Trolls are really aware of the Art and Feminism project, so they create a lot of problem for the people involved in art and feminism. So so yeah, using a pseudonym can just help you to stay anonymous and don't have any issues outside of the platform. Yeah. So in terms of contribution to Wikipedia, you can be an editor and edit articles and pages. You can also just decide to focus on tagging articles that need improvement. They are also called notification templates or banners. And you can also create a new page. But to be able to create new pages, so creating a pages about an artist, a curator, an art historian, whatever you're interested in, you need to do first at least a minimum of 10 small edit or big edits on existing pages or articles. Otherwise, you will not be able to create new pages on Wikipedia. So the edits can be as simple as, you know, adding a small information like a date, a name, or place. Anything, it can be really small, but you need to do 10 before creating new pages. The major issues with editing on Wikipedia and creating new pages, and this is one of the main reason why Art and Feminism project exists, it's the deletion. So the deletion is when your page is completely erased or canceled by an administrator, or it can be also an edit that you try to do and they refuse. So there are different types of deletion. Your page can be immediately deleted without prior discussion because the content constitutes an obvious case of non-compliance with Wikipedia policies. So it's called a speedy deletion, but there's also different kind of deletion. So usually when your article is called controversial by the Wikipedia community, there's a tag on your article saying that your article or your page will be discussed for 7 days. And then after 7 days, after the discussion that include yourself or the member of your community, the administrator, and any other editors who want to be part of this discussion, the page can be accepted or not, but it's only an administrator who could delete the article. So at the end, it's like really the administrators, the people who like admin Wikipedia pages that have the power on your pages. Yeah, so sometimes there's a consensus about, okay, this page didn't have the best sources, but we're still gonna accept it or anything. But the thing is, if your page get deleted and you didn't accept the reason why, you can always contact the administrator that closed the pages, and you can start a discussion with the person, or you can contact another administrator who also participate in the discussion. If they still don't want to put your page back, you can do further process with the Wikipedia community and and you can use some Wikipedia policies saying that the deletion was not right, but usually it's really hard to go there and And it's really hard to get your page back if you're going that far in the process. Yeah, so as I said, the problem with the deletion is that the administrator have power over the editors. And even if you can discuss and argue with many other editors and administrators for 7 days, many hours, and you try your best argument, if the administrators decided that your sources or your pages is not good enough, they will have the last word. I will talk about what's a good sources is later. But yeah, so it's created a lot of frustration for the art and feminism community, because a lot of administrator not necessarily have the resources, or they're not necessarily someone who know a lot about the art world, or like, for example, if you create a page about an artist who have a practice with ceramics, and you are an art historian and you want to and you know a lot about ceramics, and the administrator can still decide to close the page because the sources that you use to create the page are considered as non-reliable. So I will talk about it later. So even the administrator have no clue about what ceramics, what's the artist practice, if they decide the sources are not good enough, your pages will be closed. So it's really annoying for people who have, you know, really really good knowledge about the art practice, because they can really discuss about it. Yeah, but hopefully there's ways that we can change these rules, or at least we try to do it with the art and feminism community. There's also a couple tools and strategies that they will put together to help the members of art and feminism to feel safe and feel better when their page are deleted, or when they have problems with trolls. So for example, one of them is the safe brace policy. So so when there's a lot of disputes between editors, sometimes it can escalate into case of harassment, as I mentioned before. So so this safe policy is a really important tools to help the community to deal with and prevent online harassment that may occur as a result of their involvement in the art and feminism project. So these tools are available to help you make an harassment report on the art and feminism website, and then the people on the website will like give this report to the Wikipedia administrators and leaders, and they can discuss about the problem. And every time that someone wants to organize the art and feminism events, they need to make sure that everyone who's participating in the events are honoring the safe embrace policy. So it's a really important policy. It's a pretty long policy, so I didn't include it in my PowerPoint, but you can read about it also on Wikipedia and on the Art and Feminism website. And then the other tool that is really great that was created is the Security Toolkit. It's also available on the Art and Feminism website, and it's including a lot of information about anti-oppression and anti-harassment policies, useful templates when editing or creating a page article. So you can it can help you avoiding deleting articles. There's a lot of info about technical supports, anything that can help you with creating and editing pages on Wikipedia. I also put the information here in my PowerPoint. Yeah, so the security toolkit and the safe brace policy are really important to the art and feminism community, because there's a lot of anti-feminist, racist, and homophobic trolls and content on Wikipedia. And a lot of people try to close pages that have any of feminist art contents, you know, including like any content about marginalized communities. So these resources are really helpful to take some power back and fight, you know, these trolls. Yeah, so I would like to talk, before we continue talking about more of the Art and Feminism Project and Wikipedia, I just wanted to talk a bit about my residency that I did at Artext last year. So Artex is a library and exhibition center for contemporary art located in Montreal, Canada. You might know about this amazing center. So they invited me in October 2019 to do a 1-month residency as the first Wikipedian in residency at Artex. So I was invited to do a research about any art practice or any artist or creator that I'm interested in to how to use Wikipedia and make sure that some marginalized communities have more access to Wikipedia. So I also participate in a roundtable discussion at the end of the residency in November. There's a little picture with me, Hélène Brousseau, who's the librarian at Artex, and Thérèse Ottawa, who's the co-leader of the Wikipedia Atikamek Wikipedia group, who's an amazing group that focus on Wikipedia only in the Atikamek language. So, so we had a great discussion about accessibility to Wikipedia and everything that I talk about already about art and feminism. So in the past, I used to do some research on Wikipedia like everyone else, but I didn't know how to edit, create, or participate in the Wikipedia community. And I knew a little bit about art and feminism project, but not a lot. So I was really interested to, and really honored to do this residency. So the Artex librarians offered me a really useful training, and they helped me, open my Wikipedia account, and they helped me doing my first couple edits. My residency focuses on the invisibility in Wikipedia of BIPOC and LGBTQ two-spirit artists and creators across Canada whose practices develop around street arts. By street arts, I mean murals, wheat paste, stencil, graffiti, everything. And also artists, curators, and art historians that have practiced in urban public spaces. So performance, installation, direct action, everything that happening outside institution. This is really my cup of tea. These artists and collective that I was interested in studying during my residency share alternative stories of resilience, and they live outside artistic institution, and they're often absent from art history and Wikipedia, and they don't receive the recognition that they deserved. So this residency ensured that the inscription of these artists and type of practice in Wikipedia and increasing and expanding accessibility, recognition, and notoriety of artistic urban intervention practices. So, the addition of these names and works to Wikipedia is essential for greater inclusiveness and plurality of voices within the Wikipedia Encyclopedia and Wikipedia Art and Feminism contribution events. I really think that Wikipedia is a powerful tool to archive artists and creators' visual projects, especially from them who don't have access to many resources. So I started my residency by doing small edits on artist and creator page that already exist in Wikipedia, and I added some of their public art project or street art project and practices that they were not including on their page. So this edits really showcase the diversity of the art practices, and I think it was really interesting to start like that. And of course, during my residency, I realized that many women and two-spirit LGBTQ, BIPOC artists and creators in Canada who benefit from a great recognition in the art milieu in general don't have Wikipedia page. A lot of them don't have a Wikipedia page. So there's a lot of work to do there. I realized that the lack of representation and so-called diversity in the art milieu is also the same reality in Wikipedia. There's the same colonial accessibility barriers, same as the one in the art history, for example, and general oppressive system who exist in everyday life. These barriers also exist on Wikipedia. So there's this like double intersectional barriers in between practices and representation that exist in the art world and in Wikipedia. So we got the same issues in both in both platform, in both realities. So as I mentioned previously, you need to have a certain amount of reliable sources to create new pages on Wikipedia. For artists, curators, and art historians, they need to have one or a certain amount of like prestigious prizes. They need to be part of official art publication, like museum art catalogs, for example. You can add website as sources, but they need to be not like artist website, but like more like recognized website, like museum and art gallery, no blog or artist websites. So it can get complicated when you want to create a new page about an artist or creators that not necessarily have their work on museum, gallery, artist run center website, but they have their own website. So it's not considered as a reliable sources. So basically you need to put as much info as you can in the page to be accepted by the administrator. So when you create a new page, you need to add the most info you can with the list of the info that you can add. So the more info you have, the more credible your page looks like. But when the artists, curators, etc., are part of the marginalized community in the art world or have a practice outside what is considered traditional art practices, like painting or sculpture, for example. So I'm thinking about performing artists that use storytelling, for example. It can be impossible to create a Wikipedia page for these people for the reason I mentioned. So there's a real lack of accessibility in Wikipedia in general. And this is why the project that I'm going to talk about now, Reading Together, Reliability and Multilingual Global Communities, exists. So this amazing project just started a couple months ago. So I'm part of the advisory committee for the Reading Together project. It's a multilingual 6 months art and feminism research project led by Amber Berson, Monica Jones, and Melissa Tamani, who are the art and feminism leader in 3 different countries. So Amber is based in Canada, Monica in US, and Melissa in Peru. And they lead this project with the support of an advisory committee who's including Sue Barnum, Mariana Fossati, Wala Abdelmanem, Halo Fan, and myself. So, and this project is funded by the Wikigret Initiative, and we're really thankful for them. So for this project, we study what we call the WPRS, W for Wikipedia and RS for reliable sources. So we are studying the WPRS guidelines and related content policies on English, French, and Spanish Wikipedia pages. This project addresses Wikipedia information gaps by interrogating what constitutes what we call a reliable sources, the RS, on English, French, and Spanish Wikipedia, and how source authority is negotiated among editors involved in these communities. So this is really a project that is challenging who and what can and should be included on Wikipedia, and want to create more space for women, BIPOC, and Two-Spirit LGBTQ communities in the art world. So the question that this project is asking is, what are these guidelines, the WPRS guidelines? How is the reliable sources defined in action? And what is the impact of these guidelines on content about marginalized communities and editors on these 3 Wikipedias? So those are really, really big questions. And I'm going to be honest and say that we don't have the answer right now. So we're really right now in the part of the process of doing this research. So the project has 3 parts. The community conversation. We're right now in the community conversation that's happening until the end of this month. There's the second part is the qualitative research. And the third part is the written report that will be available to read online in January 2021 with recommendation for a more equitable Wikipedia, because at the end of the day, this is really what's art and feminism and reading together projects are all about. So I put here in the PowerPoint the website about the project and also the blog that the three leaders are doing during the next couple months. Yeah, so the leader of the project are holding 3 town halls. The town halls are really the community conversation. This is just another name for it. In French, English, and Spanish. And they are taking place around these subjects. Learn about our research, share your experiences, reimagine guidelines, and enact renew processes. So I just want to mention that these community conversations are open to everyone. For people who have experience in Wikipedia and art and feminism or not, if you're like new to it, but you're really interested and you have some idea to make Wikipedia platform more open and equitable and everything, you're really welcome to participate in this community conversation. We already had the French and English community conversation at the beginning of the month, but we're gonna have the Spanish one, I think, next week. Yeah, I think so. And there's a translation every time. So even if you don't speak one of these languages, you can still participate because they're translation. So it's really like accessible to everyone. And if you want to have more info and participate in one of them, you can go on the Art and Feminism website and there's all the info there. And also, if you can participate to the community conversation, but you still want to be involved, there's working document that we're using right now after the conversation with all the notes and everything. So if you're interested, you can also reach out to us and we can share it with you. So let's talk about what's a WPRS, reliable sources. So as I mentioned before, when you want to create a new page, you need to have what we call reliable sources. As I said, in the case of artists or any art curators, art historian, they need to have a certain amount of reliable sources like prizes or official publication to be able to have their pages accepted. So you need to have reliable sources that legitimize the artist's work and will conduct the reader to an official website, not a blog. Otherwise, some administrator can refuse the page and delete it, as I mentioned previously. So the credibility of Wikipedia has been established through an ad hoc but rigorous editorial process, which includes peer reviews of articles. The reliable sources guideline is based on prestigious institutions and custodians of research and knowledge, including academics, library, tech book publisher, etc., that continue this injustice, erasure, and lack of diversity on this website. So it's really like a specific guideline that is not open to all the sources. So a lot of new editors contributing content to article about marginalized communities have had their contribution contested or challenged on the ground of what is called unreliability. But so the administrator have the authority and have the power over the new editors. And this is what we want to change with Art and Feminism project and the Reading Together project. The authority of these administrators is contextual and construct. These rules and power tools are affecting marginalized communities due to the limit of existing sources and access to them. Because a lot of communities are facing multiple challenges related to histories and accessibility. Challenges include storytelling, different ways of including histories, and sometimes adding sources can be hard because some communities don't necessarily have access to their own histories and mainstream news or channels, info channels, for example, overpower all their sources. So we're asking these questions during the town halls for people who already have experience in the art and feminism project. Is like, did you get harassed or had hard time due to problem with WPRS? Sorry. Did you know any reliable sources that are used in racist or homophobic ways, for example? How we can write, promote, and put together some decolonial, intersectional, and feminist action for WPRS. But why is it hard to do? And which tool can be used to feel safe in the Wikipedia community when we will try to promote better WPRS? So it's all questions that we discussed during the town halls, the community conversation, and it's all really important question that we try to figure it out as a group. Art and feminism and reading together is really a project that bring different perspective, dialogues, community together, and trying to find not necessarily solution, but also action to take back power from the lack of accessibility and diversity on Wikipedia. So what we realized with reading during the reading together projects and art and feminism project is that the Wikipedia administrators are not necessarily participating in promoting new politics for the WPRS and are not really interested to share or give the power to marginalized contributors. And this is why a project like Reading Together research project is really important. I think one of the most important question and challenge that this project brings and discuss within the art and feminism community is how can we have the power to share our own story in a way that represents well our communities. This is really what this project is about. And I think it's really hard to do, but this community conversation is really like a beginning to beginning of the conversation. So as I said before, you can always join the art and feminism community. If you are interested to join the community, you can visit the website. As I said, it's artandfeminism.org. There's all the info there. If you're interested to learn more about the Reading Together project, there's the blog and the website. As I said, if you want to know more about the project update and invitation to the town hall, because I think there's going to be eventually more conversation that we planned. There's a Google Doc that you can fill in with information, and you can receive all the info and updates from the group. I really want to encourage everyone who's interested in accessibility in the art world for Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is a really important information tool I really encourage everyone to participate, and you can invite your friends, your neighbors, your family, anyone who think will be interested by this kind of project. And again, you don't need to have a certain amount of knowledge because we're there to share knowledge together. I think Art and Feminism Project is a really fascinating and interesting work to do in the art community in Canada and also everywhere else, because art and feminism also connecting and networking different art communities across the world, not just in Canada. It's really a collaboration project, and I think we need more people, more ideas, more dialogue to build more resources and tools to really challenge the Wikipedia world and make it really more accessible to everyone, and especially accessible to artists, curator, art historians that already have challenges accessing the art world in general. yeah, I guess I speak really fast because I'm kind of at the end of my PowerPoint. But I can see that there's a lot of question, I think. Oh, someone sent me a message. Yeah, so maybe we can do some question or comments.
Yeah, Camille, I will, this is Amanda here. I'll read you some of the questions that came in over the chat. All right, so here we have a question. I'm not sure if maybe you covered this a little bit, but someone's wondering if you've had specific training to use Wikipedia, or have you just sort of learned by trying things out for yourself?
Yeah, no, I had a specific training to use Wikipedia because I had no clue how to start Wikipedia. Thank you for the anonymous person who asked the question. It's a really good question. So yeah, I really had my training during my residency at Artex, so last year. So I'm pretty new actually to the Wikipedia and Art and Feminism project. So yeah, the librarians at Artex, because they have an experience of organizing a lot of art and feminism events, they receive all sort of training, so they're now able to give trainings to other people. So yes, I received like a 1 or 2 day training. It looks like a lot, but it was really useful to do my residency. But as I mentioned before, this kind of training are always available during any events organized by Art and Feminism, and there's a bunch of them organized I think even every month. But otherwise, on the website, there's also all the guidelines that you can follow if you can participate to any art and feminism events. So you can like kind of train yourself with these guidelines, I will say. Et merci Laurence pour ta question. Comment les artistes émergents et marginaux, et donc en marge des institutions, peuvent se retrouver sur Wikipédia si peu d'institutions ou sites reconnus ne reconnaissent leurs pratiques? OK, alors je vais répondre en français, comme la question est en français. Merci Laurence, c'est une excellente question. Et c'est d'ailleurs pourquoi le projet Art et Féminisme et le projet, je ne sais plus en français, mais l'autre projet Reading Together, donc lire ensemble, existe. Donc c'est... En fait, le problème avec les artistes émergents et marginaux, c'est vraiment un problème d'archives, je dirais, qui se passe pour eux souvent parce que, donc, pour les artistes qui ont peut-être des pratiques en dehors des institutions, des pratiques de performance dans la rue ou peu importe, ou qui participent à des petits festivals qui n'ont peut-être pas nécessairement les budgets pour avoir des archives. Par archives, je parle de vidéos, photos, enregistrements sonores. Ben ça vient créer un problème parce que ça fait que ces gens-là, ça fait que ces artistes-là n'ont pas de traces de leur travail qui est accessible en ligne. Donc, je pense qu'il y a vraiment un problème d'archives aussi qui existe en lien avec Wikipédia parce que ça fait que même si ces artistes-là ont leur propre site web, ne peuvent pas avoir accès, peuvent pas mettre leur site web sur leur Wikipédia et donc ça crée beaucoup de problèmes. En fait, le problème à la base, tout ça, c'est une roue, hein? C'est un cercle. Si les galeries, centres d'artistes, musées ne représentent pas assez les artistes émergents, marginaux, donc comment après ça, ils peuvent avancer dans leur carrière, comment ils peuvent être représentés sur Wikipédia. Donc, tout ça, ça roule ensemble. Moi, je pense qu'il y a un travail qui doit être fait à la base. Ben, en fait, il y a un travail d'acceptation puis de représentation qui doit être fait du côté des institutions et du côté, pas juste des institutions, mais du milieu de l'art en général, parce qu'encore une fois, moi, ma spécialité, c'est vraiment dans les démarches qui s'inscrivent en dehors des institutions. Alors, comment les artistes, commissaires, art historiens de l'art qui ont des pratiques un peu underground. Donc, comment ils sont soutenus, en fait, par le milieu de l'art? C'est aussi une question qui, je pense, se pose dans ce contexte-là. Donc, voilà, en fait, la question que tu poses, ça vient juste poser le problème de Wikipédia et art et féminisme. Donc, je pense que si le milieu de l'art se regarde et se pose des questions puis crée des dialogues avec ces problèmes-là, ben, éventuellement, ça peut créer une meilleure représentation sur Wikipédia, mais cette représentation sur Wikipédia n'existera jamais tant qu'il n'y a pas un travail qui est fait à l'intérieur du milieu de l'art en premier, je crois. Voilà. C'était une longue réponse, mais c'est ça que je crois. On a aussi une autre... Je peux continuer à répondre vu qu'il n'y a pas tant de questions. Je veux dire, je peux continuer à lire les questions, pardon. There's a question from Louise who asks, for newly created pages, have you noticed an interest for these pages following their creation in the statistic data? Yes, so that's a really good question. So when you create new pages, you can have access to data on Wikipedia because when you create new pages, it's related to your account. So you can see how many people go see the new pages, how many people react to it or wants to add comments or anything. So there's statistics that exist, and these statistics are really important and useful for art and feminism projects, for example, because they allow us to understand which kind of pages are accepted or not for these artists or creators, which kind of pages work, and how to create better pages, better edits for future artists or creators or any pages that we want to create. So these data exist and they are accessible for the people who are part of the Wikipedia. So yes, it's and there's an interest for these pages. People like to see if their pages were popular or not, if people want to, if people read it and everything. So that's yeah, it exists and it's really great to know. Someone asked, serait-il possible d'organiser un éditathon spécialement pour les galeries et comment s'y prendre? Ben oui, merci pour cette question. C'est totalement possible d'organiser un éditathon pour les galeries. En fait, c'est possible d'organiser des éditathons pour n'importe quel organisme, institution, association. Comment s'y prendre, en fait, c'est vraiment simple. Encore une fois, je réfère au site web de Art et Féminisme. Donc, sur le site web, il y a vraiment toutes les informations sur comment organiser son propre éditathon. Donc, il y a des ressources, par exemple, sur comment faire une petite présentation du projet, des listes de pages à créer, par exemple. Donc, ça peut donner des idées si des nouvelles personnes arrivent pendant l'éditathon et ils aimeraient ça aider, mais ils ne savent pas quelle page a besoin d'aide ou quelle page créer. Donc, il y a toutes ces listes-là qui existent. Et il y en a beaucoup, ils sont très, très intéressants. Il y en a qui sont par thématique, par pratique artistique, dépendamment. Et puis, il y a aussi des documents qui expliquent comment éditer, comment créer des pages. Donc, il y a une espèce de Wikipédia 101. Donc, pour ceux qui veulent s'y faire. Mais je dirais que vraiment, si c'est la première fois que vous voulez organiser un éditathon et puis vous ne savez pas, il n'y a personne dans votre équipe qui utilise Wikipédia ou qui ne sait pas comment faire, c'est toujours possible aussi d'inviter des gens de la communauté art et féministe Wikipédia à participer à votre éditathon et faire un petit training, donc un petit entraînement pour tout le monde. Je le recommande parce que ça aide vraiment à faire un événement réussi, je dirais. Donc, voilà. Il reste encore plusieurs questions. Yeah! Estelle demande, would it be possible to organize an international editathon, or is it always local? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible to organize an international one. The only thing with, I mean, it depends what you mean by international, because I think, yeah, there's a lot of like local events like that are organized, because it's just helpful for the small communities and small like art world and community to bring together their people to come to the events. So it's more powerful in that way because it really give the power uh, to the small community to organize some editathons that they really represent the realities and the needs from their own communities. So the local one or more, I will say, recommended. But there's some like really big international editathon that happens. Sometimes there's some specific days during the year. I don't remember the dates, but again, you can look on the website where everyone is invited to edit during the same afternoon. You can do this at your home, or you can organize a little get together. And during one afternoon from like 1 to 4, for example, across the world, everyone is invited to do a real afternoon art and feminism. And then it's really awesome because everyone get together and then everyone work on the same time. And there's like this big boom of like new pages or editing and stuff. So yes, there's some international events like that. And there's also some conference that are happening every year for art and feminism where there's like roundtable and like there's some editathons during that time. For sure, right now, everything is postponed and nothing happening in person, but there's a lot of like online events right now that's happening. Again, look on the website. Um, Two more questions. Quelqu'un anonyme demande, est-ce qu'un site de galerie est considéré comme reconnu? Très bonne question. Oui, un site de galerie peut être reconnu. Les sites Internet sont des sources fiables qui sont parfois controversées ou pas acceptées. Comme j'ai dit plus tôt, tout ce qui est éducation de blog, sites personnels d'artistes, de commissaires ou peu importe, sont difficilement acceptables parce qu'ils ne sont pas considérés comme fiables. Pour ce qui est des sites de galeries, ça dépend vraiment comment la source est citée. Il y a une façon de citer aussi que je n'ai pas parlé aujourd'hui, mais il y a toujours une façon de citer qu'il faut être très, très clair. Et donc, il faut que cette galerie soit comme supposément reconnue, donc que sur le site web, il y a beaucoup d'informations sur l'artiste, par exemple. Il faut qu'il y ait des images. Donc, quand on veut citer, quand on veut utiliser une sorte de site de galerie, il faut que cette galerie-là, elle ait vraiment un lien fort avec l'artiste ou la page que vous créez, parce que sinon, ça peut être considéré comme étant louche, comme une source qui n'est pas nécessairement fiable. Donc, les sources les plus fiables, c'est vraiment tout ce qui est information, journaux, publications. On parle vraiment de tout ce qui est en art, là. Vidéo, photo, etc. Tout ce qui est plus papier ou qu'est-ce qui fait partie de publications majeures, c'est vraiment... Les sites web, c'est ça. On peut essayer, mais des fois, c'est un petit peu compliqué. Je pense que c'est un peu ridicule comme règle, mais encore une fois, ça, c'est des règles qui ont été établies par des gens qui font pas nécessairement partie du milieu de l'art, mais qui sont les administrateurs. Donc, c'est eux qui vraiment décident de tout ça. Et puis, donc, ça peut créer des petits conflits. Oh, et j'ai une question aussi de Marie-Christine. Allô, Marie? J'ai appris qu'il n'est pas possible d'éditer sa propre page en tant qu'artiste ou galeriste. C'est vrai que ça doit toujours être fait par une tierce personne. Que conseillerais-tu pour les galeries et les artistes qu'ils représentent pour alimenter leur page? Merci, Camille. Excellente question. C'est effectivement vrai. On ne peut pas éditer sa propre page en tant qu'artiste ou galeriste. Il y a toujours des gens qui s'essayent de vouloir créer leur propre page, mais souvent, c'est rejeté. Donc, qu'est-ce que je conseillerais pour les galeries et les artistes qu'ils représentent? Ben, en fait, c'est une très bonne question. Pour alimenter leur page, ben, en fait, il faudrait... faudrait, je pense, que surtout pour les galeries, pour leurs artistes, il faudrait que ça soit fait par une personne qui peut être engagée par la galerie qui va faire... qui va s'occuper des réseaux de la page Wikipédia. On peut engager quelqu'un. C'est toujours possible de faire une espèce de truc comme ça. Ou sinon, c'est possible aussi d'engager quelqu'un de art et féminisme de faire ce travail-là, en fait, en tant que recherche. Donc, la personne ne va pas nécessairement faire partie de la galerie ou du staff de la galerie, mais ça va être quelqu'un de l'extérieur, donc il va être considéré comme étant quelqu'un qui fait une recherche. Puis là, ben ça peut être une façon donc d'engager la personne puis de pouvoir faire ce travail-là d'information puis de Wikipédia à la place de la galerie ou de quelqu'un qui travaille à la galerie. Ça peut être une espèce de sneaky façon de faire. Je pense que c'est vraiment une des solutions. Et puis, je sais que ça existe. Il y a vraiment des gens qui ont déjà fait ça dans le passé. Donc, je dirais ça. Je pense que ce qui est vraiment intéressant aussi avec Art et Féministe, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup de projets qui sont financés, des projets de recherche. Donc, il y a des ambassadeurs Art et Féminisme un peu partout à travers le pays qui sont invités à travailler en lien avec des universités, des collèges ou des galeries, etc. Puis eux font ce travail-là, donc d'ajouter des pages Wikipédia, d'éditer, etc. Puis ça peut être une bonne option pour des galeries, je pense de faire ça. Encore une fois, on peut s'informer sur le site web, mais je sais que c'est possible de faire ça. Merci pour ta question. Je crois qu'il n'y a plus de questions, mais on a encore du temps si jamais il y a des gens qui ont des questions ou des commentaires ou peu importe. Je suis vraiment ouverte à tout. J'espère que j'ai réussi à répondre quand même à vos questions. Je suis pas... j'ai fait mon possible sur ce que je sais de art et féministe et Wikipédia, puis je pense que comme je pense que vous l'avez aperçu là, dans mon PowerPoint, il y a vraiment beaucoup d'informations pour être un expert, je dirais, sur les plateformes Wikipédia et art et féministe, mais je pense que art et féministe, c'est vraiment une bonne option pour débuter. Donc, voilà. Oui, je peux répondre, Ingrid. Je ne sais pas si tu l'as expliqué au début, mais comment es-tu arrivée à vouloir t'impliquer dans ce projet? Oui, je l'ai un peu expliqué au début, mais ça me fait plaisir de le répéter. Peut-être que tu n'étais pas arrivée, peut-être que tu n'as pas entendu. Donc, comment je me suis impliquée dans ce projet? C'est en fait été approchée par le Centre d'archives Artex à Montréal à faire une résidence qui s'appelle Wikipédienne en résidence. Donc, c'est une résidence de 1 mois et demi, où est-ce que j'ai été invitée à faire une recherche sur mon sujet, qui est vraiment la représentation des artistes commissaires des communautés marginalisées LGBTQ+, dans le milieu du street art. Et donc, j'ai été invitée à faire une recherche sur Wikipédia à propos de leur représentation dans Wikipédia et puis comment ils sont représentés ou pas. Donc, en fait, j'ai eu... au début de ma résidence, j'ai eu une formation sur comment utiliser Wikipédia. Et puis, à partir de ça, j'ai fait ma résidence de 1 mois là-bas. Et c'est comme ça que j'ai commencé à m'impliquer dans le projet. Et puis, par la suite, on m'a invité à faire partie du projet Lire ensemble, Reading Together, que j'ai partagé aujourd'hui. Et puis, donc, je fais partie du comité consultatif pour ce projet-là international. Et donc, ça m'a amené à continuer à contribuer à Wikipédia. Donc, voilà.